welcome our Professor Gopalakrishna Pasumarthy. Okay, he is a dean working as a College of Gokala Rangaraj Institute of Engineering Technology. He is done as a many publicity. His activity main role of publicity and looking after planning, directing, and coordinating activities to create and maintain a favorite public image and awareness for Kokraju and Rangaraju Institute of Engineering and Technology. Okay. He has been in the role of since April 2015. And again, he is planning and developing and implementing publicity strategies to enhance the image of GRIET. Okay. He also is a familiar to research about instrumental, okay, and writing and distributing press releases to targeted media and preparation of data and submission to various private and government ranking agencies and issuing advertisements for admissions and recruitment and other promotional activities also is a part of regularly doing. Okay. And our professor Gopal is instrumental is hearing the best talent possible for different roles and various departments, okay, by using a job benchmarking with a valid pre-employment assessment by conducting such initiatives. He is also serving a member of in variety of institutional committees like GRIET. He is also one of the member of academic council. Okay, and he is a member of strategic plan development since 2020 and future to up to 2025. Okay, and he is also one of the member of IQAC. Okay, and he is the lifetime member of IST, Indian Society of Technical Education, and a life member of the Society of Digital and Information Wireless Communication. Okay, it is also a lifetime member of International Association of Engineers and a life member of ACM Computer Science and Teacher Association and a lifetime member of Asian Society for Computer Academics and Professional. Once again, I warmly welcome our professor Gopalakrishna Pasumarthy. Warm welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Now we'll start the session, sir.
Thank you, Professor Adikeshwan, for a nice introduction about me. My sincere thanks to Dr. Kaliappan sir, the head of Department Mechanical Engineering at VIT. So with your thank you very much for the organizing committee of this prominent AICTE sponsored STTP on assessment in engineering education and pedagogical approach conducted by Department of Mechanical Engineering at VIT Chennai. A very good afternoon, my dear participants. As per my introduction by Professor Adikeshwan, I am working as a professor and dean of publicity at an engineering college in Hyderabad called Gopala Rangaraj Institute of Engineering and Technology. Today, I would like to share my knowledge on the most prominent ranking agency in India, that is called National Institutional Ranking Framework. How NIRF can be used to achieve academic excellence is the agenda for today. So the topic is achieving academic excellence, a case study of NIRF, National Institutional Ranking Framework. So before going to see how NIRF works, what is the methodology being adopted by NIRF for ranking of institutions across India? Before that, let's have a small look at how technical education in India, what is the taxonomy of technical education in India? The technical institutions in India are broadly categorized into institutes of national importance, autonomous colleges, universities, and deemed universities. Institutions of national importance are further categorized into the most popular engineering technical institutions in India, that is called IITs, Indian Institutes of Technologies, and NITs, National Institute of Technologies, and some autonomous colleges, universities, and university departments. Let us see one after the other how they function, what is their governance, what are the limitations of these institutions. Let us first look at the most prominent educational institutions in India conducting technical programs is called IITs, Indian Institutes of Technologies. These are also called, they are like institutions of national importance. They were established through an act of parliament. The first IIT was established in the year 1950 at IIT Kharagpur. In subsequent years from 1953 to 1961, the other IITs like IIT Kanpur, IIT Bombay, IIT Madras, and IIT Delhi were started. See, they are like 100, almost 100 plus years old institutions. That is the greatness of these institutions. As of today, there are 23 IITs in the country. If you look at the governance of these institutions, the governance of IITs were organized by academic senates. They have their independent board of governance responsible for taking decisions about the conduct of academics, examinations, issue of degrees, etc. They have full autonomy. IITs enjoy full academic and financial autonomy such that the whole decision making is in the hands of the board of governors, and these institutes are certainly funded by central government of India. They receive hundreds of crores of funding from various governmental agencies to conduct research also. So IITs undoubtedly, certainly the front row, front role players in technical education in India. The next one is called, next category is called NITs, National Institutes of Technologies. These NITs are started in the year 1959, but when they started, NITs are earlier called as regional engineering colleges. When they were named as regional engineering colleges, they are started by act of the individual state governments. State governments used to fund regional engineering colleges. Subsequently, these regional engineering colleges were named as National Institutes of Technologies, and once they were renamed as NITs, the whole funding was being released by Government of India, that is called central government. Like IITs, how do they have academic senate? Even NITs are governed by NIT Council. As on today, there are 31 NITs in India. The respective academic senates have full control of their curriculum. They design their own syllabus. They design their own academic regulations. They conduct their examinations. They will issue their own degrees. That is the specialty in NITs. Let's go to the next category, is called universities. There are both the state government as well as central governmental fund. I'm talking about only government funded universities here. There are both centrally funded universities called as central government, central universities, and state government funded universities called as state universities. And there are also certain universities which are exclusively technical universities. If you take an example, Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University in Hyderabad, JNTUH, is a best example of a technical university conducting only technical programs. And these universities may be centrally funded or state funded, have also some colleges which are affiliated under their umbrella. Means these universities have some affiliation for power such that these universities can give affiliation to some other colleges. All those colleges are called affiliated colleges. The university which issues affiliation is called as affiliating university. In that case, all the affiliated colleges shall follow the rules and regulations, the academic structure, the course curriculum, the academic structure, etc., given by the university from time to time. So university regulates the academic and administrative performances of these affiliated colleges. The next important category is called deemed universities. There are 100 plus self-financing deemed universities and some centrally government-funded deemed universities in India. The best example of government-funded deemed university is IISc Bangalore is the best example of it. IISc Bangalore is a deemed university, and School of Planning and Architecture is also centrally funded deemed university. But apart from these central government-funded deemed universities, there are 100 plus self-financing deemed universities. Self-financing deemed universities means private deemed universities. So they will not receive any fund from government of India or respect to state governments to run the show. They have to run their own show by means of their only tuition fees. However, since these are formed under the UGC Act, they will also enjoy academic and financial autonomy. They can design their own curriculum, course structure, academic regulations. They can conduct their own examinations, and they can issue their own degrees. That is about the deemed universities. The next category is called autonomous institutions. A very vital players in technical institution category called autonomous institutions. They have limited affiliation with state university. These autonomous institutions have full academic and financial autonomy, freedom. However, they are also limitedly affiliated to some state universities because autonomous colleges can design their own curriculum. They can have their own academic structure, academic regulations. They can conduct their own examinations and give away the marks memos. However, the original degree, the final degree, shall be released only by the affiliating university. For example, GRIT, we are an autonomous institution to affiliated to JNTU Hyderabad. We design our own syllabus, our own curriculum, our own academic regulations. However, the original degree shall be awarded by the affiliating universities. So to have the control over autonomous institutions, the affiliating universities shall have nominees from university to act as members in various committees of autonomous institutions. For sake of transparency and control mechanism, let us take an example. The university shall nominate members into governing body. The university shall nominate members into academic council, board of studies, finance committee, etc. So as the university will come to know the happenings of the autonomous institutions from time to time. Hence, the university in this way can have a limited control over the functions of autonomous institutions. And these nominees will act as members in various committees of governance and academic infrastructure of the institution so as the institutions can run on a transparent way. In this way, autonomous institutions can contribute to quality of technical education on large scale. The last and the largest category of technical institutions in India, that is called affiliated colleges. These affiliated colleges, unfortunately, does not have any academic freedom because they were affiliated to some state university. They need to follow the syllabus given by the university, the academic regulations given by the university, structure, etc., etc. They cannot conduct their own examination. The question paper pattern, the syllabi, the weightage, everything will be governed by the affiliating university from time to time. So these affiliated colleges should follow the course structure, the requirements, academic regulations, etc. given by the university from time to time. These are the, but if you see, look into the categories, affiliated colleges is the largest category in technical institutions in India. So this is like this, we can understand the taxonomy of technical institutions in India, like IITs, NITs, universities, deemed to be universities, autonomous institutions, and affiliated colleges. Varieties of institutions with varieties of modus operandi to conduct technical programs. Let us slowly move ourselves towards the ranking framework. So before going to see what NIRF, how it works, let us first have an ice breaking here. So accreditation versus ranking. So many of us may get a doubt in our minds. Is there are already existing accreditation agencies like NBA, NAC, etc. available? Then what is the fun of having ranking organizations like NIRF or any private organizations or any government organizations ranking? Because there is a difference of opinions about the accreditation and accreditation frameworks and ranking frameworks. We have to understand a thin line between accreditation and ranking. Let us first look at accreditation in a holistic way. What do you mean by accreditation? An accreditation is called as a comprehensive assessment of the institutional program as whole for a period. For example, you take NAC, institution submits information in terms of self-study report to NAC. NAC evaluates the SSR and gives some grading to the institute. Similar way, National Board of Accreditation (NBA) evaluates the performance of a program, let us say BTech CSC as a program or BTech Mechanical Engineering as a program. We will submit SAR self-assessment report to National Board of Accreditation. Then an expert team will visit the institutions to assess the performance of the program on a given scale and they will be given some accreditation either for 3 years or 6 years based on the marks obtained on a given SAR. So accreditation is a comprehensive assessment of the program or an institution, where there is no question of comparison. Means how other colleges are performing is not a matter here. But when you come to ranking, ranking is a relative affair. Accreditation is a absolute and comprehensive assessment for a specific period of time, whereas ranking is an yearly affair. Accreditation will give you an absolute grade, whereas ranking will put us at a place which is relative in nature. Means the people who falls above are doing better. The people who falls below are not doing better than us. So in that way, the performance of an institution as a whole will be compared with the performance of other institutions. So ranking is a relative affair, whereas accreditation is an absolute affair. But what is the advantage of ranking? So ranking is like an annual report card to all stakeholders, means students, parents, employers, R&D labs, and all other important stakeholders can come to a common understanding about the performance of an institution by looking into the ranking of an institution. So since ranking is relative in nature, so people can come to a quick understanding about the performance of institution, because people we have some ranking like rank 1, rank 2, rank 3, and so on, etc. So people, it gives a clean understanding about the performance of an institution by looking into ranking affair. And another advantage of ranking is open to all. Any institution interested can participate straight away in ranking. However, accreditation have certain bottlenecks or certain pre-qualifiers. Means, for example, if you want to apply for National Board of Accreditation for a given program, at least 2 batches should pass out. Means it must be at least 6 years old. Otherwise, accreditation we are not eligible. But in ranking, there is no such bottlenecks. Anybody, any institution which is which is interested can simply participate in ranking. Because of all these differences, both ranking agencies or ranking bodies and accreditation bodies are continue to be prominent in any country, not only in India. So that is what about ranking and accreditation. So now let us see the main topic for today, that is called National Institutional Ranking Framework, NIRF. The NIRF was approved by MHRD, Ministry of Human Resource and Development, launched by the Honorable Minister of MHRD on 29 September 2015. MHRD thought of coming up with a framework to rank the institutions across India, irrespective of their size, irrespective of their age, irrespective of their nature. So in 2015, the NIRF was announced by MHRD. NIRF stands for National Institutional Ranking Framework. Then MHRD has set up a core committee. This committee was given a responsibility of coming up with some parameters on which the institutions can be evaluated. So the core committee was given a responsibility of coming up with some formulas, some parameters, broad parameters and sub parameters and their weightages, etc. So as every college, every institution in India should be able to rank it. So the core committee was successful and submitted the report of NIRF methodology to Government of India, MHRD to Government of India in 2015. Straight away, right away from 2016, NIRF started giving ranks. The edition of ranks is called as India Rankings 2016 is the first version of NIRF rankings. The rankings announced by NIRF are called India Rankings. India Rankings 2016 is the first version of NIRF rankings released. The first rankings were released in the year 2016. From now onward, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. The total 5 versions are released by NIRF in consecutive 5 years. 2021 NIRF application is also open. So the core committee has come up with a broad parameters and subsequent sub parameters to evaluate the performance of the institutes. Let us look at the participation in NIRF. When it started in the year 2016, NIRF, there were 4 categories. 2,734 institutes were participating. In the year 2017, categories were 6, 3,000 change institutions. 2018, the categories have come to 9 categories. Almost 4,000 institutes have participated. In 2019, 4,867. In 2020, the most recent year, there were 10 categories. Dental college categories added. That's why number of 9 categories become 10 categories. And there were almost 6,500 plus institutes participated. If you see, in 5 years in the journey of NIRF, they have started with 2,500 and ends with 6,000, almost tripled the number of institutions participating in NIRF in various categories is being enormous, since the NIRF rankings are being respected and taken as a benchmarking across all stakeholders, parents, students, employers, R&D labs, various governmental agencies to release the fundings to the institutions for mobility of R&D funds. They have been taking NIRF ranking into consideration. Hence, most of the institutions in India are planning or trying to participate in NIRF and evaluate themselves by the data that is being submitted to NIRF. Let us look at the categories in NIRF 2020. As per my previous slide, I told you there were 10 categories in NIRF. See the categories: overall, university, engineering, college, medical, law, management, pharmacy, architecture, and dental. So NIRF invites application from institutions in all these 10 different categories. Institutions which are running multiple disciplines can participate in multiple categories. For example, if there is an engineering college running engineering programs and MBA program, they can check their fortune in engineering category as well as management category, and they can even participate in overall category. So when there are multiple disciplines happening in an institute, they can come up with participation in multiple categories. This is an added advantage in NIRF framework. Let us look at statistics of NIRF 2020 in different categories. In overall, 1,667 institutes participated. In university categories, rankings are announced, but how many institutes and how many universities participated was not disclosed by NIRF. Hence, I could not tell you this. Engineering 1,071, management 630, pharmacy 334. In college category 1615, and medical category 118, law category 97, architecture category 66, in dental college 115. So these many institutions are checking for their fortune in different categories. Now let us see the NIRF methodology. The NIRF methodology, as I told you, a core committee was set up. A core committee was set up by MHRD to come up with some broad parameters, the methodology to assess the performance of the institutions. The core committee have come up with a 5-parameter mechanism for assessment of institutions' performance. The parameters are teaching learning resources TLR for 100 marks, research and professional practice, popularly called as RPC, for 100 marks, graduate outcomes GO for 100 marks, outreach and inclusivity OI for 100 marks, perception PR for 100 marks. TLR, RPC, GO, OI, PR. These are the acronyms of various parameters. If you see, every parameter is evaluated for 100 marks. So this is the methodology issued by core committee to NIRF, to MHRD, as broad parameters in NIRF. But depending upon the importance of these parameters in various categories, they have included some weightage factors also. Means every institution performance will be calculated for 100 marks in each parameter. But to arrive to a composite score, the marks obtained in every parameter will be multiplied by corresponding weightages to come to or to arrive to a composite score. So what is the weightage? The weightage is mainly dependent on the nature of the institutions. I'll show you. Now you see NIRF methodology in overall category. Same 5 parameters. Marks are also same 100 each. But if you look at here, if you look at here, teaching learning resources, the criteria, what do you say? The weightage is 30%. In RPC, the weightage is 30%. GO, the weightage is 20%. Outreach and inclusivity, the weightage is 10%. Perception, the weightage is 10%. Means if any college is participating in an overall category, the performance of the institution will be evaluated for 100 marks. Later, the marks obtained for 100 will be multiplied by the weighting factor. For example, and here also the institution's score will be evaluated for 100 marks multiplied by 30%, means 0.3. 100 multiplied by 0.2. Let us take an example. There is an institution X, got 50 marks in each category. Let us say 50 in TLR, 50 in RPC, 50 in GBO, 50 in OI, 50 in RPR. So how do we calculate the composite score? 50 multiplied by 0.3, 50 multiplied by 0.3, 50 multiplied by 0.2, 50 multiplied by 0.2, 50 multiplied by 0.1. And we will sum up. So 50 multiplied by 0.3 is 15, 15, 30 plus 20, 50 plus 10, 60 plus 10, 70. So even though you score 50 in each category, finally you will end up with 70 marks out of 100 marks. So that is how we will calculate the composite score in overall category. But in most of the categories, the weightages are 30, 30, 20, 10, 10 only. But in few categories, there is a difference. See, this is university category. Similar, 30, 30, 20, 10, 10. Then look at the next category, engineering, the most prominent category. Engineering category weightage is 30, 30, 20, 10, 10. The next one is management category, same. The next pharmacy category also same. Now you see there is a difference in colleges category. If an institution is falling in participating in colleges category, the marks obtained in each parameter will be multiplied by these different quotients. See, the weightage for TLR is 40, the weightage for RPC is 15, graduate outcomes is 25, O and PR is 10. Because in standalone college category, TLR is very important. Research does not make sense for standalone colleges, but students pass percentage placements, higher studies makes lot of difference. Hence, the values, the weightages have been changed. In the next category, that is called architecture category, also there is a difference. 40%, 20, 20, 10, 10. In medical category also same, 30, 30, 20, 10, 10. In dental category also 30, 30, 20, 10, 10. Only in architecture and college categories, we saw there is a difference in weightages issued by NIRF. Got it? So today the whole of my presentation revolves around engineering category only. Hence, I have been using this slide once again. Engineering category, the performance of institutions. NIRF engineering category, the performance of the institutions is evaluated on 5-parameter scale called TLR for 100 marks, RPC for 100 marks, GO for 100 marks, OA for 100 marks, PR for 100 marks. And the marks obtained in each category will be multiplied by the corresponding weightage. And we will sum up all those parameters values and we will arrive to a composite score. According to the composite score obtained, NIRF will issue the rankings. Means they will put all institutions in descending order of composite score and they will give ranks. So this is an engineering category, the parameters, the marks and the weightages. Now let us go to one parameter after the other parameter in a slowly in a more detailed way. So from this we understand the first parameter is called TLR, teaching learning resources. Dear organizers, I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's audible, sir.
So NIRF methodology, that is called engineering category, 5 parameters. Let us slowly start with first parameter. The first parameter is called teaching learning resources. 100 marks, the weightage is 0.3. See, teaching learning resources is the first category. It is for 100 marks. The ranking weightage is 0.3, means 30%. So this 100 mark TLR parameter, TLR is for 100 marks, is further divided into 20 marks for student strength, 30 marks for faculty student ratio, 20 marks for faculty quality and experience, 30 marks for financial resource utilization. See, 20 plus 30, 50 plus 20, 70 plus 30, 100. So the total marks for TLR is 100, is further divided into 1, 2, 3, 4 sub parameters of 20, 30, 20, 30 each. Now let us look at how the values shall be calculated for each sub-parameter. See, TLR is called as a broad parameter. These SS, FSR, FQE, FRU are called as component metrics, are also called as sub-parameters. Let us slowly go in depth to the sub-parameter level now. See, teaching learning resources. The first sub-parameter is called SS. A S is student strength. B, faculty student ratio. C, faculty quality and experience. D, financial resources and their utilization. See, the first one, A, stands for SS for 20 marks. Its full form is student strength including PhD students. This 20 marks is further divided into SS, further divided into 15 marks for UG PG student strength, 5 marks for PhD student strength. Before we try to understand the student strength, how marks will be evaluated, etc., let us first have a deep understanding about metrics, component metrics. There are two types of metrics followed by NIRF. One is called absolute metric or absolute formula. Sorry, I think I lost my connection. Did I lose my connection?
No, sir, no.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, sir, it's audible.
Okay. So we have been talking about relative metrics. In relative metrics, we will submit the data into the formula, but how many marks we will get is not known to us, because the values given by us will be compared with other colleges' data, and NIRF will come to a common understanding and it gives us some value. So some of the data given by the institutions will be compared with the data given by the other institutions. Got my point? So that is called relative metric. Student strength is one of such relative metric. Student strength is one of such relative metric. In the coming subsequent examples, you will understand what we mean by absolute metric also. So see student strength. See whenever I write f of something, that is called as a relative metric. Means we don't know how many marks we will get straight away. If there is no function of something, that is an absolute metric. We will come to know how many marks we will get. See f of NT multiplied by 15. F of NP multiplied by 5 means 15 marks per number of seats available. NT stands for total sanctioned approved intake in UG and PG. Means NT stands for how many seats you have. NE stands for how many seats were filled. F of NP stands for number of PhD students. Here, how many seats are available, how many students joined does not matter for PhD. But for UG and PG, how many seats are available in UG, PG together, and how many to have joined is matters. So 15 marks for, let us call it as an enrollment ratio, means number of seats available, number of seats filled divided by the number of seats available. For example, in a college, there are 1000 seats, but only 800 seats are filled. We call enrollment ratio as 80%. Okay, so 15 marks for UG/PG, 5 marks for PhD students. Let us take an example, try to understand them with the help of a numerical demonstration. So, for example, you take a college X whose enrollment ratio is 100%. Means there are 1000 seats, all 1000 seats got filled. So, they will get 15 out of 15 marks. No comparison, nothing. For example, if any ratio less than 100%, means if the gross enrollment ratio is not 100%, then you may get marks less than 15 based on F of NTNA. So, for example, if your enrollment ratio means some of the seats are vacant, then how many marks we will get is on a pro rata basis. So, NIRF will calculate the average enrollment ratio of all institutes participating. Then they will calculate the function. Accordingly, we will get the marks. But for a safe play, if the enrollment ratio is 100%, then we'll get the full marks. That is the advantage here. In the similar way, for PhD students also, if Institute X have max number of admissions, means there are max as a number addition, then they will get 5 marks. Means, for example, IIT Madras is having highest number of PhD students, let us say, they will get 5 out of 5 marks. So any number less than that max, the value will be reduced based on the F of NP. For example, if in any college, let us say in autonomous institutions, if there are no PhD programs, then they will straight away lose these 5 marks. That we have to understand. The next one is called P, faculty student ratio with emphasis on permanent faculty. That is called FSR, is for 30 marks. See, this is the best example of an absolute metric or absolute formula. See, FSR is equal to 30 multiplied by 15 multiplied by F by N. What is F by N? Faculty to student ratio. F by N stands for faculty student ratio. For example, if any college is maintaining 1 by 15, means one faculty to 15 students. So the F by N becomes 1 by 15. 1 by 15 multiplied by 15 is 1. 1 multiplied by 30 is 30. So FSR will be 30. So if you want to score 30 out of 30 here, then your faculty student ratio must be 1:15 or better than that. So 1:15 is the desired ratio. For if F by N is 1:50, let us say, then FSR will be set to 0. For example, if in any college, if the FSR, faculty student ratio, is more than 1:50, then the value will be set to 0. My sincere apologies to the participants and the organizers. I have some internet issue at my office. So can you make me co-host so as I will share my presentation? Abu Basim sir?
Sir. Adhikeshwan sir, could you please make Gopal Krishnan sir as a co-host? So can you hear me, sir?
சார்
ஆதி சார் அவங்கள கோஹோஸ்ட மாத்திருங்க சார்.
HOD sir only possible to do, sir.
Sir, can you make me?
No, you are co-host only, sir. You can try that.
Wait a minute.
Sir, can you make me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please wait, sir. And you can try, sir. Gopal, sir.
Hello?
Hello, sir. Hello.
Can you
Hello,
please
sir.
make?
Professor என்னாச்சு?
So now you can share the screen.
Professor, you can share the screen, Professor. பாசிம் சார்
சார் சொல்லுங்க சார்.
என்னாச்சு?
இல்ல சார், நெட்வொர்க் இஷ்யூனால டக்குன்னு நடுவுல வெளியே போனாங்க.
ஓகே 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 ஓகே
சார்
ஓகே
அதை மாத்திட்டோம். Sir is trying to join, I think so. Trying to share the screen.
Sir, am I on?
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir. No issue, sir. So you can share your screen, sir.
நெட்வொர்க் இஷ்யூ இருக்குன்னு நினைக்கிறேன் சாருக்கு.
ஆமா சார், ஆமா சார், ஆமா சார்.
ஆதிகேசன் சார் இருக்காரா?
இருக்கு சார்.
ஓகே ஓகே.
Sir, any problem?
Screen is not visible, Professor.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, Professor. Now only screen visible. Maximize the screen, Professor.
Can you hear me? Kalyapan sir?
Yes, Professor. Is it audible? Audible. Professor, you can share your screen. Audio is okay.
Hello? Hello?
Adi Keshavan, sir.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Audible, sir.
Sorry for the inconvenience. There is some network issue at my place.
Okay, sir. No issue.
Okay, sir.
Adi, sir. Co-host மாத்திருங்க sir.
Tell me, sir. Okay, wait.
Fine. Okay, sir. Fine.
I'm really sorry for the inconvenience. Sir, is it okay now?
Yes, sir. Fine. So, make the screen, sir. Fine, sir. Beautiful.
Okay. The FSR can be calculated with this formula. This table explains you how different colleges with different faculty student ratios will score marks. Got it? Now you see NIRF 2019 statistics. As per engineering institutions participation, there are only 3 colleges in FSR of 1:1 to 1:10. 341 colleges with the FSR of 1:11 to 1:20. 419 colleges with FSR of 1:21 to 1:30. 112 colleges with FSR between 1:30 to 1:40. 27 colleges with FSR of 1:41 to 1:50. This is 2019 statistics, because 2020 ranking report was not issued by NIRF. That's why we don't know how much the statistics. So that's why I've been trying to present the statistics with the help of NIRF 2019 statistics. Now let us see the next category in teaching learning resources, that is called combined metrics with faculty with PhD or equivalent experience, called as FQE, means faculty quality and experience. This is for 20 marks again. So can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Ajesh, sorry, internet See, faculty quality marks is calculated as N into FRA by 95. What FRA is? FRA is the percentage of faculty with PhD. So if you want to score this 10 marks, the FRA, that is called faculty, percentage of faculty with PhD must be 95%. See, if in any institute the faculty value is 95% above PhD are there, then FRA will be 95. 95 by 95 is 1. 1 multiplied by 10 is 10. So if you want to score 10 out of 10 here, the number of PhDs must be more than 95. Any number less than that will reduce the marks. Let's take an example, a college institute X with 95% PhDs. So substitute 95 in the place of FRA. See, I have given red color. So 95 by 95 is 1. 1 multiplied by 10, they'll get 10 out of 10. For example, there is another college with 33% PhDs. Let us take an example. So 33 by 95, something like 0.3. 0.3 multiplied with 10 is called 3.4. So the number as high as the percentage of PhD faculty, those many marks we will get it. That is the advantage here. Okay. Now let us go to the second half of this FQE, that is called faculty experience, is also for 10 marks. Now let us see how a faculty experience 10 marks is calculated. Again, faculty experience 10 marks is calculated for 3 marks per junior faculty, 3 marks per moderately experienced, 4 marks per highly experienced. See, F1, F2, F3 are the fractions. What is F1? Fraction with experience of up to 80 years. F2, fraction with people with 8 plus to 15 years experience. F3 is faculty with experience of more than 15 years. If we have people, 3 brackets, means the whole college faculty are divided into 3 groups. Freshers, 8 to 15 years experienced, that is called moderately experienced, and largely experienced has more than 15 years experience. F1, F2, F3, then the values we will put it here. Let me tell you, explain this with the help of an example. Let us take an example at a college X. There are F1 is 1/3, means 1/3 faculty with less than 8 years experience, 1/3 faculty with less between 8 to 15 years experience. Say 1/3 is 1/6 or over. The rest of all faculty is called 1/4. So F3 becomes 1/4. If you substitute 1/3, 1/3, 1/4 in these formulas, they'll get 9 marks. Imagine there is a college institute Y with no young faculty, but half of them are moderately experienced, half of them are highly experienced, but you still see, you can see only 7 marks, because this since the young faculty are not there, this fraction becomes 0. This fraction if you add, you will get 7 marks here. So here we will get a fraction multiplied by 3, and 1 we will take only the minimum of both. For example, you see 3 into minimum of 3 into half by 1. What is 3 into half? 3 into half means 1.5. 1.5 comma 1. What is the minimum of 1.5 comma 1? Is only 1. So 1 multiplied by 3 will get 3 marks only. Now come here. This is also 3 into half means 1.5. A minimum of 1.5 and 1 is 1. 1 multiplied by 4 is 4. So we will get 3 marks in this category, 4 marks in this bracket, total 7 marks only. So every institution is expected to have an equal mixture of faculty members. As per 2019 statistics of NIRF, the faculty quality and experience, you can see 67% are with no PhD, 33% are only PhD. So 95% or more PhDs will give you good marks. But let us try to understand the trend in institutions participating. 33% faculty only are. See, if any college is having any number more than 33, they may moderately score, better score. Experience also, you see, 46 young faculty, 29% moderately faculty, 25% are highly faculty members are identified. The last subparameter of TLR, that is called financial resource and utilization FRU, that is also for 30 marks. This 30 marks FRU is further divided into capital expenditure for 7.5 marks, operational expenditure for 25 marks. See, again, this is F of something, means these both are relatives in nature, relative metrics. Means 7.5 marks for capital expenditure, 22.5 marks for operational expenditure. Let us see what comes under capital expenditure. Library, new equipment, workshops, and other expenditure comes into capital expenditure. Operational expenditure comes into salaries, maintenance of academic infrastructure, conduct of seminars, workshops for students. So these are all comes under expenditure. So NIRF collects information about expenditure from every institute, expenditure of other institutes, and they will arrive at a value. Dr. Kannan, can you mute yourself? Ariappan sir, can you mute Mr. Tanna? Then you see the second category is called research and professional practice, as called as RPC. It is again for 100 marks. Weightage is 30 marks. See, overall assessment metric, the 100 marks for research and professional practice is further divided into 35 marks for publications, 40 marks for quality of publications, 15 marks for intellectual property rights, IPR, 10 marks for footprint of projects and professional practice. Total 100 marks. See, 35 marks for publications, 40 marks for quality of publications, 15 marks for patents, 10 marks for projects. Now let us see one after the other. Let us first look at the 35 marks, that is the A. That is called combined metric for publications, that is for 35 marks. So this PU, 35 marks is calculated as 35 multiplied by F of P by FRQ. This is again a relative formula. What is P? The weighted number of publications with institution affiliations. In Scopus and Web of Science, how many publications are available with the institute affiliation gives you the values of P. What is FRQ? Faculty required as per 1:15. So this F by P FRQ is nothing but number of publications per head. This will be compared with other colleges and they will come across with a fraction, that fraction multiplied by 35. That is called publications counter. So how do we calculate more marks here? By means of pushing more publications. As large the number of publications are, those many marks we will get. How many marks we will get, we don't know. Let us take an example. As per 2019 statistics, the average number of publications per head is 1.8. Means imagine if there is a college with 300 faculty, need to publish 540 papers in a year with college affiliation. Sir, am I audible? Can someone please respond? Am I audible?
Yes, very much.
Thank you. Because of my network problem, I'm getting some doubts in between. Sorry for that. See, the next category is B, combined metric for quality of publication. This is for 40 marks. See, highest weightage still we have come across. 40 is highest weightage we have come across. 40 marks for quality of publications. You see, out of quality of publications, 20 marks are given for citations per head. CC by FRQ stands for citations per head. 20 marks are given for citations per paper. Now let us see how we try to understand this formula. 20 multiplied by F of CC by FRQ. What is CC? Total citation count. For example, if there is a college with 300 papers and all 300 papers got cited for 900 times, let us take an example. So the total citation count is 900 divided by there are 300 faculty. So 900 by 300, that is called 3. Means citations per head is 3. Now come to the 20 by top 25 P by P. What is top 25 P? The citations of top 25 percentile of the papers divided by the total papers. For example, there are 300 papers in which top 25 percentile means top 75 papers are, let us take an example, cited 150 times. So 150 divided by total number of papers is 300. So 2 citations per paper. That is how we will arrive. So the citations attracted by top 25 percentile divided by total number of papers. So we call it as citations per publication. This is citations per head. 20 marks here, 20 marks. Now let us see the research and publication trend as per NIRF 2019 statistics. See number of publications. There are 904 institutes participated in overall category in NIRF 2019. The total number of publications by all colleges 1,33,985. Publications of top 100 institutions, you see 91,000 publications are from top performing institutes, only 42,000 from other institutes. You can see 68% of publications are from top 100 institutes, 31% from the other institutes. So what can we understand from this table is those institutes who are performing are publishing more and more publications are being pushed into the top of the ranking. So publications is becoming mandatory these years. Now let us see quality of publications. 904 colleges have highly cited publications, 18,245 publications is top 25 percentile. Highly cited publications, 100 top 100 colleges, 14,549 publications from top 100 colleges out of 18,000. 3,000 only Other colleges only 3,696 publications only. If you see in percentages, out of highly cited publications, the major share is by top 100 institutes. The very less share by the low performers. Another interesting factor from NIRF 2019 statistics, there are 57 colleges with no publication at all. Their percentage is 6.31. Means 57 engineering colleges does not have any publication at all. They will score all 100 marks here. All 75 marks have gone. The next one is C, IPR and patents. This is for 15 marks again. Further divided into 10 marks for patents granted, 10 marks for patents published. So this is again a relative metric. The number of patents granted will be collected from the colleges. NIRF asks how many patents have been granted, how many patents have been published. Then that is compared with other colleges and multiplied by 5. So 10 marks for patents granted, 5 marks for patents published. The next one, the last one is called footprint of projects and professional practice, FFP. That is also for 10 marks. This is for 10 marks. For research project is for 7.5 marks. Consultancy project is for 2.5 marks. These 10 marks are further divided to 7.5 for research funding, 2.5 for consultancy funding. The funding amount of an institution will be compared with other colleges. They will arrive to a common value. A factor will be multiplied by 7.5. But of course, you have to understand consultancy funding have less value, research funding have more value. If you look into 2019, 17, 18 statistics of research funding, see, this is a median research funding. So 3,69,000 is the median research funding in the year 2017, 6 lakhs in 2018, 8 lakhs in 2019. Do you know what do you mean by median? Is very simple. The fundings of all institutions are arranged in an ascending or descending order. The value which falls in the middle is called as a median. So if any institute's research funding is better than better than the median, means we have been contributing, means we are doing good. If any value less than 8,67,000, the value is uncertainly low, means we are not good, performing good. We have to look into it. The next one is called grad. The third and another important parameter is called as graduate outcomes. The ranking weightage is 0.2. The graduate outcomes 100 marks are further divided into 40 marks for graduate placement and higher studies, 15 marks for graduate university examinations, 25 marks for graduate median salary, 20 marks for graduate PhD student. Number of PhD students graduated: 40, 15, 25, 20. Now let us see each one of them. How do they calculate? So the first and foremost one is called in graduation outcomes. The first category is called GPH, graduate placement and higher studies for 40 marks. 40 marks, how we will calculate? You see, GPH is equal to 40 multiplied by NP by 100 plus NHS by 100. What is NP? Percentage of students placed. What is NHS? Percentage of students selected for higher studies. Means how many, what is the percentage of students placed? What is students of a percentage of students going for higher studies out of past? For example, if there is a college with 1,000 final year students, only 800 have passed, means pass percentage is 80%. Don't worry about that. Out of these 800, how many are placed and how many are going for higher studies is a question. See, out of 400, 50% are placed, means 400 are placed. And 400 have gone for placements. Let us take an example. Higher studies means 50% for placements, 50% for higher studies. So NP becomes 50, 50 by 100, 0.5. Higher studies also 50, 50 by 100 is another 0.5. So 0.5 plus 0.5 is 1. 1 multiplied by 40 is 40. We'll get 4 full marks. Means if you can push every graduated students to either placements or to higher studies, we will score full marks here. Okay, let us take an example. Try to understand this table with a numerical demonstration. For example, if there is an institute X with 50% placement, 50% higher studies, they'll get 40 out of 40. See, if there is an institute Y with placement percentage 40%, higher studies percentage is also 40%. Means 40% people placed, 40% people went for higher studies. Means there are 20% graduated students, successfully graduated, becomes useless, neither placed nor pursuing higher studies. See how they will affect this formula. 40 by 100 plus 40 by 100. What is 40 by 100? 0.4. 40 by 100 is another 0.4. 0.4 plus 0.4, 0.8. 0.8 multiplied by 40, 32 marks. So if there are 20% graduates not neither placed nor going for higher studies, we will lose marks here. The next category is metric for university examination. GUE is for 15 marks. See, this is the best example of an absolute metric. We will come to know how many marks we will get here, because in the NIRF application we will submit how many students have placed, how many students have passed. Because if you substitute those values here, we will come to know our marks. Now come to 15 into minimum of NG by 80, 1 is for graduate university examination is for 15 marks. Formula is 15 multiplied by minimum of NG by 80, 1. What is NG? Percentage of students graduated. For example, in any college, if 80% or better percentage is obtained, so you substitute 80 in NG, NG by 80 means 80 by 80 is 1. 1, 1. The minimum of 1, 1 is 1. 1 multiplied by 15 is 15. Let us take an example. If there is a college with a pass percentage of only 40, substitute 40 here. 40 by 80 is 0.5. The minimum of 0.5, 1 is 0.5. 0.5 multiplied by 15 is 7.5. So 80% is the desired pass percentage. We have to improve the teaching learning process of the college in order to ensure or make sure the number of students graduating pass percentage shall record 80% or higher. We have to incorporate or instill established procedure for teaching learning processes to support students to graduate in minimum time. So teachers' quality, everything must be taken care in order to ensure graduation outcomes. Increasing pass percentage does not mean reducing the quality of question papers. It is improving. It is nothing but improving the quality of technical education by means of teachers, the teaching content, the learning outcomes, etc., etc. Every institute should follow strict measures in order to improve the graduate pass percentage by means of instilling some quality benchmarks. The next one is called graduate median salary, 25 marks. GMS is equal to 25 multiplied by FFMS. The graduate means and median salary for 25 marks. See, the median salary of an institute will be compared with all other institutes multiplied by 25. The median salary. For example, if there are 400 students placed successfully, then median salary is nothing but the salary which falls in the middle. The last one is called GPHD, graduated PhD students for 20 marks. If any college does not offer any PhD program, they will straight away lose this 20 marks here. So 20 for multiplied by F of NPhD. NPhD stands for the average number of PhD students graduated from the colleges. So the last but one category is called outreach and inclusivity. Its weightage is relatively less for all categories. Sorry for the inconvenience. So the outreach and inclusivity for 100 marks, the weightage is 10%. You see 100 marks is divided into 30 marks for region diversity, 30 marks for women diversity, 20 marks for economically and socially challenged students, 20 marks for facilities for physically challenged students. Total 100. We will see one after the other. The first one is RD, that is 30 marks. So the percentage of region diversity stands for percentage of students from other states and countries. That is called region diversity. Out of this 30 marks region diversity, 25 marks for students enrolled from other states, 5 marks for other countries. So the formula is 25 multiplied. It is also an absolute formula. 25 multiplied by fraction of total students enrolled from other states. Means what is the fraction of number of students from other states? For example, if there is in a college, if there are 10 students from other states, whereas the total strength is something like 1,000. So the fraction will be 10 by 1,000, means 1 by 100. That is a fraction. Similar way, fraction of students enrolled from other countries also. So the marks is for 5 marks. See, we would like to understand this metric with the help of a numerical demonstration. Let us say there is an institute X with the outside students percentage is 1:25 and outside countries 1:100. then if you substitute 1 by 25 and 1 by 100 in this formula, you will get 1.05 for 25 marks and 0.255 for 5 marks. So this is how we will get it. For example, there is another college Y with 100 in outside state, 200 in outside country, they will get only 0.255 marks in region diversity. Region diversity to score marks in autonomous and affiliated colleges is very, very difficult. Those deemed universities, centrally funded universities, IITs, NITs shall score a large number of marks here because the number of students admitted into these institutes are from joint entrance examinations conducted by IITs. Hence, the region diversity will be pretty high in these institutes. Let us say the next one, B, percentage of women diversity. Women diversity again is for 30 marks. In the 30 marks, 15 marks for number of women students, 15 marks for women faculty. See the desired percentage, NWS stands for percentage of women students, NWF stands for percentage of women faculty. We have to substitute the women percentage, women students percentage here, women faculty percentage here, then divide by 20 and 50 here. Means how do we score full marks here? If the NWS is 50 or above, we will get full marks here. Means if the 50% students are girls, we will score 15 out of 15 here. If 20% of the faculty are women, we will get full marks here. See, imagine an institute X with 50% girls and 20% women faculty shall score 30 out of 30. Whereas a college with 25% girl students, 15% women faculty, substitute 25, 15, 25 by 15 is 0.5, multiplied by 15 is 7.5. Again here, 15 by 20 multiplied by 15, we will get 7 plus 5, 7.5 plus 3.5, that is called 12 marks. We will end up with 12 marks. So the desired percentage of girl students is 50%. The desired percentage of women faculty is also 20% to score full marks, 30 out of 30 here. See the next one, outreach and inclusivity. The next subcategory is ESCS, economically and socially challenged students. This is also for 20 marks. See, ESSC is again a relative formula where F of NESC multiplied by 20 marks. What is NESC? NESC is the percentage of undergraduate students being provided full tuition fee reimbursement by the institution. Means how many students have been given full fee reimbursement by the institutions, not by any government or non-governmental bodies. It is exclusively the fee reimbursement issued by the institution matters here. So in order to score more marks, institutions can establish various endowments and give away scholarships whose work is equal to the whole tuition fee. The last subparameter of outreach and inclusivity is PCS, is also for 20 marks. PCS stands for facilities for physically challenged students. So to evaluate the performance of an institution for this 20, the NIRF will ask these questions. If your answer for these 3 questions is yes, institutions can straight away obtain 20 out of 20 marks here. See the questions. First question, does your institution have lifts or ramps? Yes or no? Do your institution have provision for walking aids and wheelchairs? Yes or no? Do your institutions have buildings specially challenged toilets for handicapped students? Yes or no? So if your answer is yes for all 3 questions, we can get 20 out of 20 marks here. My sincere appeal to all the participants of this prominent STTP, not just for sake of scoring 20 marks here, every institution shall take an oath to improve the facilities for physically challenged students. It is on humanitarian grounds, every institution should have certain facilities exclusively for physically challenged students. Marks are secondary, humanity is primary. The last parameter is perception. Its ranking weightage is 0.1. Its ranking weightage is 0.1. The overall assessment matrix is called PR is for 100 marks. The perception is for 100 marks. Its weightage is only 10%. How an institution's performance is evaluated for 100 marks in perception is very simple. There is a survey called as peer perception survey where employers and academic peers are involved. So how do they conduct? How NIRF conducts this perception survey is the peer perception of an institution, the performance of an institution shall be understandable by the perception of academic peers and employers. So NIRF will give a survey to employers, means the companies which are coming and recruiting our students, and also some survey form shall be given to the prominent institutions of close proximity. So this is done through a survey conducted over a large category of employers, professionals from reputed organizations, and a large category of academicians to ascertain their preference for graduates of different institutions. Means I'll tell you an example here. For example, if TCS is the continuous recruiter for your institution, so one top class employee of TCS may get a survey about your college, means how the students of an institution X are performing. In the similar way, to assess the performance of an institution in a college in Chennai, IIT Madras professor may receive a survey form to know the standing of, let us take an example, Velamal Institute of Technology, how they have been doing. So the academic peers and the employers shall receive a feedback form about the performance of it. Sometimes some professor from IIT may get a survey form of 10 colleges, and he or she may be asked to arrange the 10 colleges in a sequence. So this matters a lot because 100 marks. However, the weightage is only 0.10, 0.10. This perception survey reflects the performance of an institution on a large scale, because an institution must bring a strong belief into the minds of the important stakeholders. The important stakeholders includes not only students and parents, but also the employers and academic peers. So this is how NIRF works. Now let us see how NIRF application will be filled. So the NIRF application is also called as data capture format, DCF in short pointers. So the details NIRF DCF ask an institutions to enter the details of past 3 academic years every year. The details about these following parameters will be sought by NIRF every year. See, sanctioned intake, how many seats are sanctioned, how many are approved. Okay. Total student strength as per admissions. How many were placed, how many went for higher studies. Financial resources must be matching with audit statement. How much money is spent on capital expenditure head, how much money is spent on operational expenditure head for past 3 financial years is sought. Sponsored research projects means how many projects have been granted, how much amount of money has been credited to the institution accounts. This shall be verified by third party because most of the projects have been sanctioned by AICT, SERB, UGC, DST, etc. The information will be available on a free hand to NIRF. Hence, institutions are expected to submit foolproof data to NIRF. Consultancy projects, because how much money have been earned from consultancy projects. These values may be compared from our audit statement, because as long as NIRF exercises is in continuation, every institution is expected to host their audit statements onto their websites publicly. And number of patents and number of patents granted and published. Number of teachers got awards from national international repute. Students awards from international repute. NBA accreditation of courses. Village adoption scheme under Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, faculty details, and how many faculty are available, what is their qualification, how much experience do they have. The data given by the institutions to NIRF shall be compared with the AYUSH, All India Survey on Higher Education Teacher Information Form. I hope most of my learned colleagues here know that every year All India Survey on Higher Education collects information about faculty working in engineering colleges. Another important fact we have to attract the attention of all my dear participants is NIRF will never ask information regarding faculty publication from the institution. The list of publication will be collected from third-party sources like Scopus and Web of Science. Before ranking exercise is going to be closed, NIRF will give a confirmation email to every institution. As per Scopus and Web of Science, these many publications are available with your institution's affiliation. Would you like to confirm or would you like to differ? Most of the situations, the data driven by the NIRF about publications will be absolutely right, unless until 1 or 2 numbers may mismatch due to a small mistakes in the institute's affiliations in Scopus and Web of Science indexing. How DCS is being filled? See, every institutions can have their own habit of filling this. Yes. However, as an example, I would like to explain the methodology being adopted at our institutions. Every institution shall have a nodal officer for NIRF exercise. In our case, I am myself, my Dean Publicity is the nodal officer for NIRF. I will collect information from various parameters from Dean placements, R&D, Green Campus, admissions, examinations, and accounts officer. And the values will be cross-checked once and again to verify for its correctness, and then as per the facts available, figures will be filled. At any given instance of time, if NIRF founds any data is of guilt, they will ask for a clarification. And every institution has to send a satisfactory clarification. Otherwise, NIRF may invalidate participation of an institution to the great extent, or NIRF will continue with the values available with them from time to time. This is how DCS is being filled. This is how NIRF whole architecture works. It's worth visiting the parameters of gross impact of NIRF. Let us try to recollect what are all parameters which shows a lot of impact in NIRF, then we will understand. And we can have a well-detailed established procedure in institutions to keep a watch on these parameters from time to time to make institution for better thing. Means a continuous quality benchmarking shall be done on these parameters to perform ourselves better. That's why I have named my presentation as Achieving Academic Excellence. Once you understand what all parameters needs improvement year after year, if an institution works in that direction to improve quality in these parameters, certainly we can march towards academic excellence. See the important parameters in NIRF, in TLR, enrollment ratio, how many seats are available, how many are getting filled. Admission into PhD programs, if any institute is fortunate enough to offer PhD programs, fantastic. Otherwise, most of the institutions will not have a facility to offer PhD programs. Faculty student ratio, number of faculty with PhD qualification, faculty experience, how many youngsters, how many moderately experienced, how many of them are highly experienced. Capital expenditure, operational expenditure. Here the terminology is capital expenditure per student, operational expenditure per student. See, most of the institutes are established under Society Act. They run on no profit organization. So the amount, how much amount is spent on per student matters here. The second parameter is research and professional practice, RPC. The parameters of high impact are publication count, how many papers are being published, quality of publications. Here two dimensions for quality of publications. One is citations per head, citations per publication, very important. So how do we improve the citations of an institution? Is simple, by means of writing sound technical content. See, if there is a original research work is being published from an institution by one faculty, certainly it will attract a lot of citations. If the publication is of good quality, attract citations. Patent, number of patents granted and published, the amount earned under research project grants criteria, consultancy grants, how much money is earned under consultancy projects. These 5 parameters shows a gross impact in RPC. In graduation outcomes, GEO, the following parameters: number of students placed, number of higher studies, how many were placed, how many studies, out of passed. The total number of students appeared for final year examination does not matter here. Out of passed means successfully graduated students. What is the percentage of students placed and how many were went for higher studies? Pass percentage, as I told you, 80% is the desired pass percentage. Median salary, by attracting very good companies for placements, this median salary can be made better. Number of PhD students graduated. If an institution is offering PhD programs, they shall have an opportunity to score some marks here. Otherwise, we will lose this 20 marks out of 20 here. The outreach and inclusivity. The parameters of gross impact. Number of girl students and women faculty means what is the percentage of girl students? What is the percentage of women faculty? 50% girl students, 20% women faculty is the desired ratio. Any number less than 50-20, we will lose marks. Number of students from outside state and country. So any institution, by building brand image across the country, can attract a lot of students from outside the state and outside the country. Institutional scholarships, how many number of undergraduate students were given full fee reimbursement matters here. Facilities for PhD students. The last one is perception, response from employers, and academic peers for the survey. How our employers, means the companies, the representatives of the companies coming for placements, shall react or reply positively about our institutions and the graduating students. Hence, every institution's outcome-based education philosophy certainly help institutions to check the attainment of POs, program outcomes, and program educational objectives. See, POs is nothing but a measurement of performance of graduating students after 4 years. So they will bring an image into the corporate world about the institutions. For example, a student passed out from an institution performing well in a company, then certainly the company, that corporate management shall have a very good opinion about the institution from which he was passed. Why most of the corporate big, large, huge, highly rated MNCs would like to recruit people from NITs and IITs, because the graduating students from prominent institutes shall certainly perform better. So that is the perception they have in their mind. NIRF will try to capture that perception from employers and academic peers. So finally, the NIRF ranking parameters and weightages, we know TLR is for 30%, 100 marks. RPC is for 100 marks, weightage is 30%. Graduation outcomes is also for 100 marks, percentage weightage is 20%. Outreach and inclusivity is also for 100 marks, weightage is 10%. Perception is also for 100 marks and weightage is 30%. So this is how NIRF works. NIRF methodology, 5-parameter mechanism with the sub-parameter mechanism, which are further categorized into absolute and relative metrics, and the data captured by NIRF from every institution year after year. Let us now focus at how the top attributes engineering colleges shall have. Not only NIRF, there are some other leading ranking agencies in the world like Times Higher Education and QIS ranking institutions. So what are the attributes of more importance in these top engineering colleges in the world? According to these attributes of top engineering colleges have derived from QIS and Times Higher Education actually. Of course, they will match more or less with the NIRF parameters also. See the parameters: diversity of students, number of nationalities. We have been talking about region diversity in the NIRF, means the number of students joining from other states and the number of students joining from other countries matters here. If an institution could be able to build a huge brand image, certainly it can attract a lot of students from other states and other countries. In the similar way, in the similar line, diversity of faculty, how many number of nationalities, how many people from other states and other countries. Global curricula, what is the standards of curriculum, whether cutting edge technologies are being taught or not. Quality of placements, so how many offers were made by the companies, not only matters here. So what is the nature of companies, how many MNCs, how many global companies are coming and visiting, international placements have been created or not. Industry interface, every institution shall have a good rapport with institutions of close proximity to work, to improve the skill set and work towards skill development of the institute for the students. World-class infrastructure, alumni who are spread worldwide, growth and innovation, that is called best practices, research publications of global standard. We have come across publication and quality of publications, 30 marks for publications and 40 marks for quality of publications. They are highly targeted publications, which are said to be good quality if and only if the quality of publication can only be understood by the number of citations it attracts. The way how do we attract more citations for a given publication is nothing but by means of publishing quality content. A quality content is published certainly attracts a lot of citations. International collaborations for faculty and student exchange, the number of memorandum of understandings available with the institution to exchange the faculty and students. Students may go to some foreign university to pursue their 1 semester course there. In the same way, our faculty can be exchanged. Our faculty can be sent to some foreign universities to conduct a course, and some faculty from other foreign universities can visit to our institution to conduct a course of semester duration, international collaborations for faculty and student exchanges. The next one is called international accreditations like EBET, etc. And finally, the board of governance and international advisory board. Means every institution's performance is greatly influenced by the apex bodies available in the institution for governance. Let us take an example. An institution's governance is usually organized by varieties of boards of members. The topmost body in autonomous institutes is called governing body. The next one is called academic council, board of studies, finance committee, etc. So if you can have visionaries inside the as nominated members in those boards, certainly will improve the quality of education in the institution in terms of academic operations and financial operations and administrative operations. So how to achieve excellence? Excellence is a continuous process by means of keeping varieties of benchmarks for all parameters of gross impact. An institution can improve the performance. See, the visionary leadership, strategic planning, well-established guidelines and procedures for process management, student, stakeholder, and market focus, faculty and staff focus, the performance of organization as a whole, and focus on the future. So an institution with great leaders as visionaries as leaders. See, as I told you, if you can have a director from an IIT as a member of governing body, shall give you a lot of varied inputs to the improved performance of the institutions. In the similar way, a great educationist, maybe a former professor from an IIT, can be a member of an academic council to give you more transparent and varied inputs to improve the academic performance of the institution. So strategic planning, every institute will have a strategic planning. What do you mean by strategic plan? Means a roadmap for the institute for coming 5 years, let us say 5 to 10 years. That is called as strategic. Every institution shall adopt a strategic plan, means where we want to be in coming 5 years is matters. So what strategic plan? Strategic plan is what are we, current state of the institution. It's not about that. Where do we want to go? It will be revealed by our mission and vision. Vision means where we want to be. Mission means how do we go there. That is called a mission. Where do we want to go? How do we reach there? Means some action plan must be available. Vision, where we want to be. Mission, how to go there. See, strategic plan is a tool to reach the vision through our mission. So strategic plan consisting of set of goals and strategies to achieve them. So let us take an example. Standalone engineering colleges shall have strategic plan of 5 years duration, and every year after year, the performance of the institution will be assessed based on the goals set in the strategic plan, whether those goals have been met or we need to postpone them to the next subsequent academic year or not. So hence, a strategic plan does not deal with future decisions. Strategic plan does not mean what is the decision we are going to do in future. It is about the futurity of present decisions. Means whether the decisions which have been taken right today, will they be adaptable in the nearby future or not? This is told by Peter F. Drucker, a professor of social science and management. Usually, so if you want to achieve academic excellence, what are the various parameters of gross impact should be continuously monitored in institute? We call them as generic performance measurement, irrespective of the body, NIRF or Times Higher Education or QS or any other ranking agencies. Usually, an institution should have a watch on all these important verticals of an institution: intellectual capital, infrastructure. Every institution shall check on a frequent basis about these parameters: intellectual capital of an institution, infrastructure, growth and innovation, governance, financial management, perception, faculty, student placements. Means every institution should set up certain methodology and mechanism. See, this is not new. Every college shall have two important cells. One is called as IDMC, Institutional Development and Monitoring Committee, and IQAC, Institutional Quality Assessment Cell, Quality Assurance Cell. So IQAC and IDMC, these cells shall have all the heads of the departments as members in these cells, and from every 6 months, these cells shall have a review on these parameters, intellectual capital, etc. Let us see on a broad level, what are the things we have to consider under each of the such category? Intellectual capital, student faculty ratio. Intellectual capital means in terms of people. Number of applications per student means this is called demand ratio. How many seats are available? How many applications we are getting? Number of faculty with PhD, faculty exchange, budget for faculty development. How much amount is being spent for faculty upgradation, skill upgradation, research and publication. Infrastructure, built up area in terms of square feet for students means sprawling acres. Library budget, e-databases, e-books, e-journals, network connectivity, IT investment, student computer ratio. Growth and innovation. These are the parameters in growth and innovation. Governance, financial management, perception, faculty. The faculty quality and performance may be calculated depending on these parameters. Number of courses taught, student feedback, number of courses introduced, how many papers have been published, number of books written, how many number of executive development programs have been conducted and attended, how much amount of money have been earned by faculty through consultancy grants. And as discussed earlier, the quality of student placement, how many students were placed, what is the median salary, what is the average salary, what is the minimum salary, what is the maximum salary, how many number of global companies on board, the number of days of placement, all these things matters to assess the performance of students placement by so-called cells in the college like IQAC and IDMC. Only the thought for the day. The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable man will try to adapt the world to himself. Hence, the whole progress depends on the unreasonable man. A beautiful quotation by George Bernard Shaw. The presentation is over. Thank you for patient listening. The floor is open for questions now.
Dear participants, any